Should I be looking straight on to camera or angled out to you? Oh, to you. Okay. All right. Whenever you're ready, begin asking your questions.
Oh, there are numbers. It's actively. Oh, I'm good. Anicio gave me a thumbs up, so I think I'm good. Hi, I'm Briar. I use they, them pronouns. And apparently, we're supposed to film this confessional video thing, explaining our last adventure to y'all.
Hmm. Yes. When did we initially realize that we were going to be running into trouble? Well, I would say that probably began in the graveyard. We were speaking to the graveyard keeper, and he was telling us tales of these creatures that he would see watching from the woods. One was very large, and one had many eyes.
Apparently, what he saw was this black, formless mass of eyes looking in from the darkness of the forest. He made it sound almost eldritch, but we would later find out it was a bit more mundane in nature. While we looked around the forest, the first thing we noticed there were rats everywhere.
The whole time, there were these rats just scurrying on our feet. I'm not a fan of spiders. This might have been worse. Honestly, like, rats scurrying over my feet? No.
I may have been the god of animals, but rats were never really my strong suit. I mean, domesticated rats are nice. They're nice, they're clean, they're kind of cute. But wild, plague-ridden swarms of rats, that's not my forte.
Now, I, for one, simply admired their work. I have never seen a plague spread so quickly among a town, and so of course I had to stop and admire one of these rats, and upon closer reflection I realized that these were in fact not normal rats at all. I got very, very close to one, held out my hand. It crawled up, sat on my shoulder. It was quite lovely.
Anizio started playing with one of them, but that's Anizio for you. It doesn't surprise me that he likes them.
That is, until I saw its eyes. They were the most putrid shade of yellow I have ever laid my eyes on. And that's when I said, friends, we must simply find out where these rats are coming from because I have to know more. Which is then what led us, yes, to the woods.
See, getting lost in the woods is never fun. And then there's getting lost in the woods following rats.
The rats were heading into the forest, so I decided to use my skills to track them. They are, however, rats, and, well, when there's so many of them, it's easy to lose the trail. Oddly enough, they brought us through the same area of the forest that we found that pile of gnoll bodies earlier that day when we were with Ren.
Now, thankfully, due to my quick thinking, I knew that I had seen this disease before, so I simply uttered a few words, muttered an incantation, and I was able to see everywhere this disease had touched, but much to my dismay, the entire forest was absolutely covered in disease and rats, and honestly, what an exciting day in the office, am I right? My traveling companions are definitely more squeamish than I, so I had to bravely lead them through the woods, to get to this well that we discovered that all of the rats had sort of congregated around.
Eventually, we got to this well, and we heard this obviously siren like music coming out of it. And immediately I'm standing back. That is not something you trust at all. I've gone on enough adventures in my day to know creepy music coming out of a well surrounded by rats. That's not radical.
And all of a sudden, as we were examining the area, we could hear this melodic flute music, and all of the rats descended. I truly thought that we were going to be in for some trouble, but thankfully they all gravitated towards the well and went down. So we all knew that must be the next step in our mission.
Oh, we're gonna have to go into the sewers, aren't we? Co, I hate you for being right.
And at that moment, we had all reached the same conclusion that Ko was right about us probably having to go into the sewers. It took a couple of us to open it, and by the time we did, the smell was something. The others were arguing about whether we should go back or continue going, or if we should go for try and find another entrance to the sewer, or who should go first. But I made a promise to Ren that I would help him save his mother, cure the disease. So I pushed forward and went down first. Eventually the others followed. Initially we were met with this one singular room, but eventually we managed to push through the hallways to where the sewage actually flows. We tried our best to keep to the walkways, however we were met with a wall. There were a couple bridges at a few points, but sadly at some point we had to wade through it. Of course, wanting to keep my promise, I pushed forward, not happy to do it, but it's a sacrifice I was willing to make.
It was absolutely disgusting. And I couldn't have been happier. I was splish splashing around in all of those puddles.
Ew, 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 ew.
So, anyways, we get to this part of the sewers where there's like a walkway on both sides, and we had to get across. Most people swam or waded across. Co jumped, so I was like, I could do that. I I can jump. I bet you I can jump. And that's the last thing I remember.
Briar went to go jump over one of these streams and fell in.
Unfortunately, Briar lost her footing and was swept along with the water.
I was shocked by how strong the current of this sewage was, for it dragged Briar into a completely separate chamber. And I, being so kind and benevolent, jumped in after them.
So Briar slips and fall. Briar going this way. Anitio and Co are going this way. Marcus is going that way, and I'm just kind of stuck in the middle. Like, what the fuck do I do?
I will admit, things may have gotten away from me just a tad. I think it probably had something to do with the algae in the water. It made everything very slick. So I was unable to get a proper grip on Briar, and they they fell deeper into the sewage. And then Ko also tried to pull and also dropped Briar. So at this point, Briar is just soaked to the bone. Ko and I are also adequately soaked, but we put our two minds together and managed to haul Briar ashore. And this was the moment I realized, where's Dylan and Marcus?
Anizio and Co jumped into the sewage to try and rescue Briar, but I pushed forward and Dylan followed behind me.
So I decided to follow Marcus, right? Because, like, I can't leave him alone. They have 3 of them. They kind of disappeared into the middle of nowhere. And I'm just here. Hope Marcus doesn't. I don't know. Now we're going closer to the flute music. I hope we don't have to fight this boss battle alone.
Eventually, I was met with this corridor filled with gas that I instantly recognized was flammable. At that point, I was very aware that if there's flammable gas, there's probably something to ignite that gas, so I kept my eye out for traps, and I noticed a tripwire. Thankfully, I was a bit clever and scooped up some of the sewage water and wet the ignition mechanism of the tripwire. That way, even if it was pulled, it wouldn't go off. Dylan and I pushed forward, and we were eventually met with what seemed like almost a constructed barricade.
The next thing I remember jumping, and then I remember Anizio trying to wake me up using a literal rat shit as like a smelling salt sort of situation. I don't know. So I thought I made it. I did, seriously. But apparently, according to Anizio and Co., I failed terribly.
You know, we could have gone back the way we came, but when you're presented with a new tunnel, the new tunnel you must take. So us 3, we went on a little jaunt down this tunnel and ended up looping us back to the beginning. And after a little bit of searching around, making our way past some traps and smoke and what have you, we did regroup with Marcus and Dylan.
At this point, Anizio, Co, and Briar had thankfully caught up to us relatively unharmed. It was nice having light again, but I would have pushed forward even without them.
After we had gotten back together, we decided to continue exploring these sewers. All the while, there's this music playing, and we passed the occasional rats, but not nearly as aggressive as what you would expect in a sewer.
I broke down the barricade with a bit of effort, and we pushed forward into this much older looking hallway of the sewer. It led down and down and down, and eventually we reached a ladder. Perhaps a bit overconfident from defeating that last tripwire trap, I accidentally triggered another one going down. Thankfully, we managed to dodge out of the way and no one got caught in it. We made it out of that also unharmed. We pushed a bit further and Eventually, we reached the sewer chamber.
We stepped in. Right, big open room. In one corner, I immediately noticed there's like what appears to be some sort of gutted animal with a nice little pile of gold heaped in front of it. So I immediately noticed that, and unfortunately, it sort of distracted me from the gigantic knoll standing at the far side of the room.
A knoll sat there with a little instrument. I think it was a flute. I will admit, music is more of Dylan's thing than mine. It tried to speak to us, but none of us speak knoll. But it became abundantly clear that this knoll was controlling the rats with the flute.
It played some sort of song, and these rat swarms descended upon our group.
We got ready to battle. I fired a couple arrows at the knoll. And eventually, I did bring the knoll down. I hoped that defeating the knoll would free the rats from its spell. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case.
I can't do it. The rats. I mean, they are just helpless animals. And I was the god of animals, and I still care about them a lot. But they're gonna hurt my friends.
And I was completely taken aback that when the rat swarm crawled upon me and started biting me, I fell to the floor. I don't actually want to talk about this. What all that matters is that I was quickly back into the fight thanks to the quick thinking of my wonderful teammate Dylan, who managed to heal me from some of those nastier bites that I had received. But ever since then, I'll be honest, I've had a bit of a a bit of a sore throat, and sometimes I see things and I'm not quite sure they're there. You're real, aren't you? Okay, good. I thought so. Yes, so anyway.
So we did have to fight off that last swarm. I got a lucky shot in and skewered two of them at once. As a god, I had done better shots, but given my current limitations, I think I did quite well.
After being bitten by those rats, I did the only logical thing one would do in that situation, and just began eating them. Yes, turn my teeth to acid, and it just quickly gets straight through the fur and the bones. It's excellent source of protein. So, with that rat swarm taken care of, I relied upon my teammates to do some more of the hefty damage to the knoll and the other swarm of rats, which they quickly did with no issue, because I was keeping the ferocious pack of rats that would have killed everybody had I not eaten them. So if you think about it, we won because of me. Yes. No, it wasn't. No. Just because Marcus managed to get two final kills does not mean that I was not a contributing member to this fight. I was very, very important.
Dylan took the flute and thankfully freed the rats from the spell. And afterwards, I felt a small amount of my power returning. It was interesting, to say the least.
Yes, and I believe that's pretty much everything about our our mission and the things that we accomplished. So I believe this interview is. Oh, have I had any dreams lately? I, um, I don't know what you could possibly mean by that question. Like, oh, have I had any dreams about my mortal life? Ah, well, who sent you? How do you. The matters of my youth are behind me. I do not wish to discuss how I felt as a child. If you want to talk about abandonment issues, I assure you I am not the god that you want to be talking to about that. Mm. Do I think that that experience has affected my personal relationships with my fellow party members? No, no, no. I am just the way I am. I am a naturally standoffish person, uh, who is very capable. I don't need other people to rely on. Why are you bringing this up? Did Ko set you up to this? Just because I defaced her altar. I swear. I'm sorry. I must go. I have some words to say to Ko once I find her.
I got this beautiful flute. Oh my goodness. Just look at it. It's gorgeous. Marcus looked traumatized when he seen his memory. And Anitio didn't look much better. I'm glad I got a happy one. I remember the time when I first decided to become a bard. Yeah, that was the good days. Of course, that's all I remember from those days. But they are the good days.